So this tutorial, I'm going to make a skull model. It's the first tutorial I usually have people do whenever we have like a mid-level or advanced modeling class, and it's just to kind of get people acquainted with the ZBrush interface as well as some basic modeling tools, and to kind of get them on the path of sort of learning anatomy a little bit better. This skull isn't perfect, and it should really be something that you can get down in about an hour or less. So it's like something to practice too. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the reference. The reference itself is not perfect. You can see that the front part is kind of leaned back. So if you have access to your own anatomy skeleton, it's better to sort of take pictures for yourself. I kind of pieced this together from the internet. They used the warp tool to sort of get it to line up the best I could. You could see again that it lines up pretty good. Again, it's just the top part that kind of comes over. So let's go ahead and jump back into ZBrush. So the first thing I want you to do is clean out your interface in case there's something else that's already open. So just go to Preferences, Initialize ZBrush, and hit Yes. And that'll give you the default interface. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to import in a Skull Obj. What it is it's just a cube I made in Maya. That's also available on my website with the reference. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit T, and I'll have my cube here. And then what I'm going to do is just hit Control D and divide that twice. And the reason why I make all of my spheres out of cubes is because it gives me, it's kind of a trick I actually learned while working full-time in the game industry, gives you a sphere with all quadded out faces, which is a lot nicer to work with than a sphere that's default out of Maya or Max, because they give you triangulated root points. So let's go ahead and turn our floor on. What I normally do is I usually set up my X and Z with it off, just because it's easier to see them by clicking on X and Z. I mean, it also works while on, it's just kind of hard to see. So with X and Z on, you can see it creates these image planes. Now these are the planes that we're actually going to apply our image to. So let's take a look at the interface I like to use. Actually, let's take a look at how to move around our object. So to actually rotate the sphere, I actually just click the left mouse button out into the gray area. If I want to pan, I hold the Alt key down and I click the left mouse button. Now this part's can be confusing for some people. If you want to zoom in and out, you actually have to. Now at this point, my thumb is still holding the Alt button, and my left finger is still holding the left mouse button. So I'm not going to release the left mouse button. I'm just going to release the Alt key, and that allows me to zoom in and out. So left clicking allows me to rotate, holding Alt and left clicking allows me to pan, and then continuing to hold the left mouse button but releasing Alt allows me to zoom. Alright? So let's get that skull reference onto these image planes. So the interface I like to use a lot is actually this one, because it gives me my brushes at the bottom. I'm just going to click on these two arrows here, and it's going to expand off this side here. So I'm going to go to Draw, and I'm going to drag off this power symbol and drop it here. Now these two planes correspond to this panel here. So for example, front to back, you can see there's a map 1 and map 2 button. This is the back part of the Z-axis, and this is the front. So I'm just going to click map 1, go to import, and I'm just going to navigate really quick to that skull reference image. You'll see it appears here. Okay, so that's the front and back. So here's actually the front of my image. Let's go ahead and line that up a little bit so that the skull is just sort of looking right at my sphere. So something like this. Alright, let's go to left and right. Let's click map 1, import, and again let's select our skull reference. And I'm not going to move my 3D model. I'm actually again just going to move the the side profile view, like that. Alright, and let's make sure I didn't kind of screw up that other side. Let's go back to front and back, and there we go. Now what I'm actually looking at is, let me turn on polyframe so you guys can see that a little bit better. I'm looking to kind of get this front image plane about the center of the line, because I'm not actually going to sculpt with the left side of the face here. Well, I might actually choose that. It's just whatever the dominant side is. So let's go back and re-drag out draw. There we go. I'm just going to offset it a little bit more, again, just so that line is hitting about dead center of his face. So that could be, yeah, that's about right. Alright, let's take a look here. Alright, so let's go ahead and save off our ZTL. I already have the one that I showed you from the previous example, so I'm just going to name it _01 as my first step. And then in the next video, we'll take a look at shaping out our skull.